This video will consist of me discussing ways to achieve a positive outcome with successful implementation and continued use of new technologies in the classroom. According to Gestalt theorists, each individual will perceive information in different ways. The theory of affordances by James J. Gibson say that objects need to be perceived for actions to take place. This statement means, in relation to the classroom, that a child may perceive an object in a different way to another child, which means that they will take different actions. This shows that each child's way of learning is different. So a teacher will have to consider the idea that every child is different when they would introduce a new piece of technological equipment into the classroom, and the teacher should cater for every child's individual learning needs. An example of a theory that supports this idea of each child learning differently is Fleming's VARK theory, which suggests that pupils have different learning styles, which are visual, oral, reading and writing, and kinesthetic, and the teaching style has to match each child's individual learning needs. An individual's characteristics and preferred ways of gathering, organising, and thinking about information. VARK is in the category of instructional preference because it deals with perceptual modes. It is focused on the different ways we take in and give out information. This statement means that learners digest information in their own preferred way, and this depends on how they perceive the work they're doing. On the screen now are Fleming's ideas of how children may prefer to learn compared to other children. This is one theory that I have seen many be heavily critical about because it has been argued that labelling a child to one specific learning method is not suitable to learn all skills. But I can take some useful information from this source. For example, my experience of introducing a technological device to children in 3 separate lessons, I did see various personalities and also many different ways that a child did prefer to learn. I taught children who wanted to take control and do everything with their hands, whilst I also taught children who needed a bit more guidance than others. This showed me that all children have individual traits, and therefore each child has different learning styles. Also, in my experience of one-on-one private teaching in mathematics, I have noticed how confident a 6-year-old child is with an iPad, and through using it, I have noticed their confidence in general mathematics ability has improved. When introducing a new technology to a group of people, whether they are teachers or pupils, there will always be a mixed reaction to the product. These reactions can vary considering some people might live their day-to-day lives with a large amount of technologies, so that they are actually dependent on them, whilst others may want to avoid contact with the new technologies because they could possibly feel scared of it. These two feelings are classed as technophobia and computer dependency or addiction. Technophobia is the fear or apprehension of modern-day technology, and computer dependency or addiction is when someone feels that they need a certain device or access to the internet to live their day-to-day lives. So if a new device is implemented into a classroom for teaching use, it would not be useful if the teacher of the class feels reluctant to involve themselves and the class with the benefit of the new technology. If this new technology that the teacher is reluctant to use will enhance the pupil's learning, then in turn by not using it, the children are receiving a less positive learning experience than other children who are learning using the device. Many teachers feel under pressure to be expert on computers because the children that they are teaching are often brilliant with technology, as they've been brought up with it. A lot of the population are on Facebook, Twitter, and other social media websites, and majority of the children can text more words in a minute than they can type. These children who are confident using different technologies will feel confident with the new technologies implemented in the classroom, along with teachers who are comfortable with technology, although some people live their lives through technological devices and are therefore dependent on them. This can be a negative trait to have and can even cause some people to suffer withdrawal symptoms. For example, when people have not used their phone in a while. Being dependent on computers can affect people's personalities in many ways, and in some cases people will try to distort and expand positive traits of their personality online. The idea that people can change their personality or expand positive traits to be who they want to be in an online setting can be attractive to some, and this can perhaps be a reason why people are increasingly more dependent on computers. This idea of pretending to be someone else online can be related to Goffman's idea of a front stage and backstage self. In this idea, a person performs differently in a different setting, but when Goffman talks about a setting he refers to furniture, decor, physical layout and other background items. But online we can refer to a social network where people can perform as someone else, or as Goffman stated, it is the activity of an individual which occurs during a period marked by his continuous presence before a particular set of observers, which can be argued to be exactly what a social network is. Hans Eysenck suggested that there are different types of personality that everyone will fall into. This picture shows a logical argument considering where people will fit into. Although this theory has many critics who argue that no one person will securely fit into one area. He does argue, though, that people are not fixed for all eternity within their personality type. Although this theory is criticized, it also has many who believe that they can take valuable information from this, such as the idea that all people have different personalities fits in with the primary classroom. Children do all have different personalities and therefore will react differently to a technological innovation for the classroom. Another area that could be considered when looking into integrating a technological innovation into the classroom would be to think of the way children would react to the product. By thinking of this, I am focusing on the behavioral aspects of teaching and learning. A theorist can be linked directly to behavioralism is Ivan Pavlov. His experiment of conditioning his dog to react in a certain way to a sound revolutionized the way behavior is thought of. Other theorists have expanded from Pavlov's works, such as John Watson, who expanded the idea of conditioning by testing on young humans. His test showed that reactions can be controlled and affected by repeatedly producing a negative situation. Another example of behavior theorist that can provide an idea of how to affect behavior in the classroom is Albert Bandura. He believed that children's behavior is reproduced from what they see others do, and therefore learn to adjust their behavior from their experiences. There are many people who children observe throughout their lives, and they reenact their behavior. People such as family, friends, mentors, and peers can affect children's behavior. This statement suggests that various things can affect people's behavior. Therefore, a teacher can set an example for a pupil. In a special educational needs setting, I have seen devices such as an iPad used as a reward in a classroom for good behavior. This shows that children enjoy being on technological devices and see it as a reward, although playing games on a device is different to using it as a channel to learn. The idea of a prize for working hard and completing work is a motivation to many children, but does using technology influence children to work harder? Woolward believes that because of computers being seen as non-judgmental, pupils do not seem to react badly to a computer when it corrects their mistakes. He noticed that there seems to be an acceptance of the decision and a motivation to get it right next time. A report for the BBC had noticed that autistic children may learn better through robots, through their lack of judgment and that the children find them less threatening than a human, although by doing this the children are not learning to interact with other humans effectively. Another factor that affects children's learning in the classroom is the children's memory. Short-term memory lasts only for a short period of time, so it is understandable how children can forget a lot of what they learn. Hermann Ebbinghaus suggested that we forget a lot of information that we learn without repetition. Therefore, repetition takes place in the primary classroom. His idea of the forgetting curve, as seen in this picture, is that the more you repeat information, the more likely you are to remember it. In 1956, George Miller suggested that people can only process 7 plus or minus 2 lots of information in their short-term memory. This theory was the start of the building blocks for Sweller's cognitive load theory. Leading on from Miller's work was Chase and Simmons' theory of chunking, which is by sorting information into groups of preferably 3, the learner can see the information portrayed in front of them much more clearly. This is important for learning. The cognitive load theory is that the working memory is limited in capacity, and when too much information in different forms is thrown at a learner, not all of the information will make it into the long-term memory. This means that by overloading children with information, they will not learn effectively. Here is a good example of the cognitive load theory. This is a good example because it explains the idea of cognitive load. It explains that some children can only process a certain amount of information at any time. For a child to learn effectively, the teacher of the class must understand that by overloading the children with information, they will not be able to remember all of it. Also, working memory does not last a long time, therefore repetition must be done for children to remember. It is important to consider these things when teaching in the primary classroom. Finally, by introducing a new technology, children and teachers who struggle with using technology will gain skills and confidence. By a teacher using technology confidently and comfortably, children will be able to reproduce the behavior that the teacher is portraying. A teacher has got to remember that every child is different, so what might work for one child will not work for another. Therefore, teaching of a class has to be flexible to conform to all the children's learning needs. Using technology in the classroom can make teaching more flexible considering the amount of products that can be used in various ways to adapt to each children's particular needs.